How's it going, everybody? My name is Ry, and I am a VTuber as well as a Cardfight Vanguard player. Recently, this past weekend, I was at Bushiroad Springfest, Newark, New Jersey, and I played for both day 1 and day 2. Day 1 I did play, and I actually made top 8 with Bob Sargra, but that's not what I'm doing today. So what I'm doing today is I'm showing you guys my V-Series deck that I went undefeated with. Now, unfortunately, me winning alone didn't help us get to top. My teammates unfortunately did lose rounds that did matter, but they just did not have good luck compared to me. But I also, I've been playing this deck for a while, and it's an original brew. Most people do not play this deck this way. I don't think anybody does but me, because this is my original thing that I am essentially starting. So as you can tell by probably the playmat, I did play Thing Saver. Yes, you hear it right. I went undefeated with Thing Saver the entire Springfest for the entire day for V-Series for Bushiroad Springfest, Newark, New Jersey on day 2. My matchups were actually surprisingly relevant decks. First round was Overlord. Actually, no. First round was Gurguit. Then it was Overlord. Then it was Yasuie. Then it was another Overlord. And, let's see. Overlord. Gurguit, Overlord, Yasuie, Overlord. I also versed a, heck, what was it? I versed Grand Blue and then Vanquisher. And Vanquisher is my worst matchup, and I still won. That's saying something. And they were actually a pretty good Vanquisher player. But yeah, those were all my matchups for that day. Would have been more if we gotten to the top, but unfortunately my teammates just didn't have the luck to get there. But, there's always next time. Hopefully, I can show off just what this deck can do someday, and I'll make a good show for it one day and getting a top or something. But, it is what it is. I'm sure I'll get another opportunity soon. But anyway, let me go ahead and start off on the deck. There's only one relevant starter for me for any Royal Paladin deck. And it is because my VTuber username is RYsing Legend. So of course I have to use the one legend in Royal Paladin. Starting Legend Ambrosius. Yeah, he's the only relevant starter for me just because he's also a legend. And I typically like to start from triggers and work my way up. I do not count the Heal Guardians in the grade 3 lineup, because I like to keep them together with the triggers. So, of course, we have our 4 Heal Guardians. Being able to search these things off Sisylas is actually incredible. Because sometimes you really do need them to save your neck. And I'm just letting you know that my trigger lineup is actually very, unexpected, I'll say. Most people will not expect to see this. So, of course, we have our 4 draw PGs. Draws are so good in this deck. Because we already have crit pressure with Thing Saver, we can afford, draw triggers are just even better because we don't need the crit pressure as much. Which is why I'm actually, crazily enough, I'm running 7 draws. Now, I did actually want to get the triple rare version of draw triggers in the Alt Mile Trial deck, but unfortunately I couldn't really get them in time. But I am going to end up ordering them probably because I can't really find people that have them. So 7 draw. And so, of course, that would mean that I'm also going to be running a total of just 5 crates. The 1 Loof for now, but when I get the triple rare foiling trial alt-mount trial deck Apona, that's going to replace him, because I don't think Lou has a triple rare foil variant. Yeah, you really don't care for running crits as much in this deck, because you could just throw them back whenever you feel like you need them. But this deck is very piece reliant, so having the extra draw triggers actually comes up a lot more, and you know, that's just free discard fodder for your PGs and for your Blaster Blade Seeker skill. Because you really don't want to discard your higher power shields for your discard skills, because you know that comes up and you need to use that to defend. But anyway, we went to grade 1s. We're only running 12. I didn't use this specific rarity of Sisylas at Springfest because I didn't have them at the time, so I couldn't register it. I couldn't really play with these, but I got them after my deck log was submitted. But we got the really pretty Sisyluses now. You know, I can't stress enough just how useful Sisylas has been, because like, we're running a very low grade 3 count in this deck, and being able to use Sisylas and get me my Thing Sabers or Heal Guardians is so essential. And on top of that, its 13k body does come up more in this deck, and I'm going to show you why soon. But we're just going to move on to the other grade 1s. We're running straight up 4 copies of Lucius. Lucius is our main multi-attack enabler other than Thing Saber itself. And he also helps us fix our soul. So we're not using it to call Jewel Knights usually. You guys are probably be scratching your heads and be like, wait, what? Yeah, this isn't a Jewel Knight centric version of Thing Saber, and that's why it's more of an original brew. Because if I'm being quite honest with you, I think Jewel Knights are just completely overrated. At least as a whole. But there are some that are still very versatile. For example, Eunice. I think Eunice is the best grade 1 Jewel Knight that they ever printed for V. One, you get the ability to retire when you call over it, which can come up if you have to snipe something like in the back row or something that you can't touch. And just being able to ride over it and get the plus still is really useful. Like, it's like a Morbidus, but just better. And plus, it gives you a soul charge literally for free just by boosting, and then it just returns to your hand. It doesn't even have to boost a attack that hit. So it is just so good in this deck. So like, what I could do is I could just use this boost Blast Blade Seeker on a turn that I haven't rode, and then I get them. I'll essentially go and put 2 cards in my hand after that attack, so I'm clearing up the entire column so that I can have a space to fill with my multi-attack pieces. But anyway, now getting into the grade 2s, which this is the big part of it. 4 copies of Libero. This deck is a grade 2 toolbox variant of Thing Saber. One thing that this deck lacked when it was running just the Jewel Knight engine was an early game. It was so slow early on, it had no pressure or aggression early, that it just died before it can really get to do what it wants to do. And you really just don't get much out of, like, just soul charging. Yeah, you can keep putting pieces back, and I am still running some Jewel Knights to do that, but you don't need a lot of them. Like, if I'm being honest, Sybil is, like, the worst piece to have. Because you can whiff the Sybil, and it just stinks if you do. But Libero is super versatile. Not only does it have an alternative cost if you have no CB, but it literally fetches any grade 2 in the deck. course, you can't have Thingsaber without his Legion mate. 3 Blast Blade Seekers. Don't need more than 3. They're always going to go back to deck. And you're just going to keep bringing him back. In this deck, it's a lot better because I have ways of protecting him in this deck. And I have ways to utilize him a bit differently than the Jewel Knight variant could. And I'm going to explain that in a moment. And that would be now, because this Grade 2 Toolbox version is running Alt Mile cards, so we actually have Starlight Violinist in this deck. Now, this might seem like an unorthodox option, and it kind of is, but there's a good reason for Violinist. So, I noticed a lot of times, when I keep my Blast Blade Seekers on the board, typically my opponents are going to either try to retire him or attack into it. With Violinist, I can safely call my Blast Blade Seeker to the back row and just make it a big booster that they cannot touch. And since I usually have Violinist in the back row behind the Vanguard as well, they can't attack Violinist either. So they would have to do spot removal to get rid of them instead of being able to attack them straight up. And not only that, I can also intercept from the back row if I have no face-up damage, and my Grade 2s can boost. So if I have like 2 or 3 force markers and Thingsaber calls out Blast Blade Seeker, he could be a 30 to 40k booster instead. And then on my next turn, I can slide him up to the front row just so I can make sure that he goes to deck and draws me a card after he's done attacking the turn I didn't ride, and just before I do my Superior Ride. Next, this is the last Jewel Knight. 2 copies of Lael. It's the best Grade 2 Jewel Knight, if I'm being quite honest. We did get a leak for a new Jewel Knight, all the new Jewel Knights today, and actually the new Grade 2 could potentially make its way into this deck because it has a counter charge ability, and it's a fairly decent one, but I would have to test it when it comes out. But for now, Lael is the only Jewel Knight I really need right now, because, you know, she is a combo piece, essentially. So what I could do is I can use Lucius to call out Levero during my battle phase, and I can just go, okay, call out Levero, skill, call out Lael, and then use Thingsaber's skill to call my Blaster Blade Seeker from deck, calling it over her so it can get even bigger and harder for my opponents to guard. And you know, if I ride it as well, it's just even better. It just makes my Thingsaber 23k on ride, which is still very good. And it still is able to recycle all my Grade 2s, so that Levero will always have a target in deck, as well as being able to fuel soul for Thingsaber. Now we have our last soul building card, essentially. Double Die Connect Dragon. You know, in a soul-reliant Grade 2 Toolbox deck, this card is not bad to have at all. It's just on-place Soul Charge, and then if it's a trigger, it gets plus 10k. That matters. There are times that 10k is the reason my opponent eats more damage early on, because I'll do a rush on my Grade 2 turn, this'll hit the board, become a 30k column, and they just cannot guard it sometimes, and by the time I ride Thingsaber, they're already at like 3 or 4 damage. So that the Blast Blade Seeker skill to give Thingsaber crit becomes a bit more scary for them. And they'll be a lot more likely to drop cards on that turn. Then we got one of the best cards in the deck. Oh my gosh, Rabble is amazing. This card is like, it matters so much. And being able to fetch it out with my Leveros is just fantastic. So, the reason I like him is he essentially just makes it so that I almost hardly ever miss my Thingsaber ride. Because I can use him, and if I use Sisylis and I whiffed it, or I just don't have Thingsaber yet, I could bot deck this, if I don't draw Thing Saver and I draw him instead, I have another chance to dig for Thing Saver. But another really good thing about Rabble that I really like is, since he says you can, to put a non-grade 2 to deck to draw 2 and call 1, I can put all of my triggers back. So sometimes what I'll actually do is, if I really need the draw and I just want to put triggers from my hand to deck, if they don't have like shield value that matters at the moment, I'll go, okay, I'll call Margal, call Rabble, bottom deck the Margal, draw 2, call 1. So that gives me triggers left in my deck. And I won't have to try as hard to get him back to deck, so I won't, if like, I didn't have to guard my opponent's rear guards, or they didn't like do that much that I had to guard, then I could just, again, just use this, put a trigger back that I called that turn, and just establish my board. And on top of having that card draw ability and being able to put some triggers back, or just like any of that, it also has the bonus that it has a continuous skill on front or rear guard. All my back row rear guards cannot be retired by my opponent's card effects. So if your opponent is playing like Kagero or Luard or something, and they're gonna try to target my Blaster Blades I have in the back row or my Starlight Violinist, they have to get rid of him first. And if I have 2 out, that just means they're never touching my back row stuff. And then the last card is actually probably getting cut from this deck, if I'm being honest. I'm running 1 copy of Degnud, or at least I was, for the event. There was never a time where I was actually glad I had this card throughout the whole event. It just never came up. So if I'm being honest, I'm probably gonna take this out instead. This might be a little weird, but it works. I'm probably gonna run regular Blaster Blade, because it actually works in this deck. 1, if I ride it and I have my grade 2 rush set up, it's a 2 crit Vanguard right away. Second, if I with Levero, I can just pull this out of the deck whenever I want and use it to snipe my opponent's front row if I have to. So it's actually quite versatile to have it as a 1-of. But not 100% sure. One of my buddies said I should also maybe try Blaster Dark, because, you know, sometimes I'll just go and attack their front row, and then there'll just be back row that could be snipes. So, and because of Lucius, I can call out the Blasters or Levero to search them during the battle phase. So I could always, okay, swing, get rid of your front row. I have I have my both front row columns are open. Thing Saver attacks, Superior Ride at the end of the battle, Lucius skill, draw, call Levero, Levero call Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark. If it's Blaster Dark, I can use it to pop their back row if I absolutely need to. So the 1 text spot is either going to be Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark. Let me just find my Blaster Dark. I have it like right nearby. There he is. Of course, it has to be the one that has the Royal Paladin text. Doesn't look like this is the Royal Paladin text one, unfortunately. But I do have one somewhere. Somewhere over the rainbow. Okay, rip, it's not in this pile. So I'll have to go find another one probably in the near future. But, you know, gotta get the one that says it's also, this card's also a Royal Paladin. But, yeah, I'm gonna try the Blaster Blade, but I think I'll probably end up, like, maybe potentially using the Blaster Dark instead, because it can matter a lot. Like, the extra drive, if I hit draw triggers, that's just more fuel to my hand that I could possibly use to start going and comboing off. But yeah, Degnut is coming out. It's gonna be either Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark for that last one-up spot. And then of course, the beautiful Thingsavers. I am going to get Thingsaver and Blaster Blade Seeker in their highest rarity the moment I can get them. I want them in their highest foil rarity. I think it's VSR or something. I'm going to get them. But still, the SP is still pretty as well. These were only like $5 when I got them a piece. And they're just so pretty. I love them. But, yep. That is essentially all. That would be the Grade 2 Toolbox Thingsaver deck that I was completely unstoppable with during Springfest on day 2. So, if you guys enjoyed, go ahead and follow to see any more stuff. If you would like to see me stream, I typically stream over on Twitch. I don't really have a particular schedule yet because, you know, my routine's like a little wonky right now. But as of late, when I have been streaming, I typically have been playing like Dark Souls 3. It is my first Dark Souls game, so if you want to see me either be a OP swordsman or get my butt kicked or rage or something, yeah, you go ahead and click on the link in the description below to my Twitch. And every once in a while I'll probably do like some tabletop Vanguard with some people to play test, because, you know, as I said, I'm gonna have to try out the Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark, see which one of them work out for the deck, and then pick whichever one is most viable. I'm leaning towards the Blaster Blade, but I can see the Blaster Dark probably ending up working better, just for the main reason that I've already got Blaster Blade Seeker that pops the front row, so having a back row sniper is probably going to be really nice as well. But, yep, that's my 2 cents. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video, so have a good one.